So to maybe create a foundation for that, would we say that sex in marriage is important? And why would we say sex in marriage is important?
I think this is a great question. And I've heard this from a lot of women who have either their own struggle with pornography or other sexual behaviors, and women who have been betrayed. It seems like once they recognize the physiology that goes into sex, I mean, God's design for sex, why he tells us about this unique relationship that a husband and a wife have, and that when they have sex and when they achieve orgasm, that their brain and body are creating all of these chemicals, like this chemical cocktail that was uniquely designed for them to be able to bond in this relationship that we don't have with anybody else outside of our marriage relationship, which I think that in and of itself would make it really important. It's like if we have this one single relationship that we only have this experience with in our entire life, why would we not work really hard to protect it and understand it and recognize that God designed it for something that was really amazing for both husband and wife? And so I think that just even understanding that the chemicals that our brain creates when we achieve orgasm with our spouse were uniquely designed so that we would bond to our spouse, that would create like mate guarding behaviors in men, and it would create nesting behaviors in women, and that those things would create contentment in the relationship, that they wouldn't need to go outside of the relationship to find that feeling because it's being created when they have sex in their marriage. And so that's what I think that a lot of people don't understand, is that it's like, oh, well, I don't really want to have sex, but I'll watch a show. And it's like, well, okay, you could do that, but you're not nearly going to get the same chemical cocktail and feeling and experience that you get when you're having sex with your husband. And I'm just saying that in the context of like health, not in a betrayal situation and not when recovery and healing hasn't taken place. But I'm just saying that after you've done all that work and you're to a place where sex is possible in the relationship, that this is why I think that it's important.
You know, something that I've been thinking about too, and I've talked to my wife about this, that during sex, it often, especially with today in the distracted world that we live in, even in the season of life that we have with two kids, sometimes sex feels like the only time I have all of my wife's attention. And I know that your brain can be thinking about other things and in other places, but it's something where there is an aspect of it where you have to be very present. And I think that that's very beneficial for relationships. And with this question too, I think back to like Genesis, where like they were both naked and unashamed, that there's this like, here's me in all of my makeup and all of my, I don't mean makeup like actual makeup. I mean like how my body's made up. It still doesn't sound right. You know what I mean? But this idea of vulnerability and transparency and like I don't have anything between me and you. And I think that too goes a long way in marriages and feeling close and intimate with your spouse.
Well, and when we say that we believe sex is important in marriage, I think we have to be careful to clarify what we mean by sex, because I think that's actually the problem that has been created in marriage, is sex has essentially become a one-sided fulfillment of my needs, and you're here to meet my needs. Yeah. And in that scenario, it's easy, or at least easier, to see why maybe one spouse would conclude, I'm not in for that anymore. You know, it's just, giving you this high. It doesn't feel good for me. My needs aren't being met or even considered. And especially if there's been a fracture in the relationship, that hurting or betrayed spouse might feel like, I don't need that anymore. And so when we say sex is important in marriage, just like you were describing, Heather, there's some assumptions we're making about an effort or at least a desire that the couple has that it be mutually satisfying, that it consider the needs and desires of both, that both couples walk away feeling like there was something in it that brought pleasure or joy, satisfaction for me. And that doesn't mean every time has to be the same way or every single time both couples will have the same experience. I mean, we all know that sexuality in marriage is a dance, and sometimes one leads and sometimes the other, and sometimes it's great for both and sometimes it's not. And I mean, that's a reality of the ups and downs of connection. But if at least the goal and the desire of the couple is we're in it for each other, we're looking for mutually satisfying, enjoying times, then we would say, yes, absolutely, sex is a very significant part of the relationship because of what Heather described about the physiology of our body and our brains and the connection hormones and the exclusivity of that moment and just all the things that God designed it to be at the stages of marriage. Then yes. But that may be part of the underlying issue here with some sexless marriages is what a person is defining as sex is really getting my needs met, and it's the other person's job to. And if that's all that's happening, well, there may be some really significant roadblocks that are keeping sex from happening.